opening, the invitation to the invisible. Reality often appears solid, measurable, obedient to the paths that daily routine imposes. Yet just behind what the eyes register, there exists a subtle fabric, silent but restless, where possibilities move and stir like waves, still deciding which form to take. When you pause, breathe, and notice the quiet gap between one thought and the next, you touch the threshold of that field. It is here that metaphysics brushes against quantum physics and whispers a truth. Consciousness is not merely a passenger in this world. It is the artisan shaping the very outline reality assumes. Today we will walk slowly and deliberately through this territory, tracing the invisible strands that support every gesture, every decision, every destiny, quietly ripening in secret. Before we go deeper, let me ask you for something within this very first minute. Like this video and subscribe to Dazzle of Dawn. This isn't just routine channel etiquette, it's an intentional act that alters the field itself. When you choose to support content designed to elevate and expand awareness, you emit a signal, a subtle frequency that resonates with other open minds. The algorithm, which in essence is a statistical mediator, begins to reflect that frequency. On a metaphysical level, your decision helps redirect probabilities toward more meaningful connections. On a quantum level, your attention encourages coherent collapses around clarity, synchronicity, and purposeful direction. Imagine your click as a smooth stone dropped into the surface of a still lake. The ripples don't stop at the point of impact. They travel outward, touching distant shores, reaching other eyes that are weary of noise yet hungry for substance. Each intentional interaction reinforces a network of meaning. And that network, in turn, holds and supports you in moments when fatigue erodes conviction. By choosing to engage, you invite unexpected returns, a timely idea, a chance meeting, a moment of courage that quietly reorganizes the priorities you had forgotten. What we are embarking upon here is not ornamental, nor is it entertainment for passing distraction. It is inner craftsmanship, a work of slow refinement. We will weave together images and equations, poetry and precision, much like stitching map to territory. The language of consciousness gives direction and sense. The language of quantum physics provides the framework and contour. When both meet, a ground you can truly walk upon begins to take form. You will hear metaphors because metaphors unlock doors, and you will also hear careful explanations so your mind can find its structure. The purpose is not to impress with shine, but to invite you into experiences that, when repeated, quietly rewire how you see, how you feel, and how you act. If you wish, adopt a small gesture of presence right now. Straighten your spine, release the tension in your shoulders. Inhale as if you are gathering light. Exhale as if offering back gratitude. Notice the storm of inner voices softening until only a clear and simple awareness remains. This modest act is a form of spiritual technology with far-reaching effects. Without showmanship, you shift your frequency from static into coherence. And coherence gives you a new lens to read reality. What once seemed chaotic begins to reveal patterns, and what once felt like an obstacle becomes raw material for the next transformation. And so, together we light the first candle of this journey. It is small, but more than enough to illuminate the outlines of an inner temple that has always been here. There is no need to rush, because timing is an ally for those who seek roots and not just blossoms. In the blocks to come, we will construct a bridge between perception and phenomenon, always remembering that every insight asks to be lived out in the ordinary rhythms of daily life. You did not come here in search of shortcuts. You came seeking a lived method, and a lived method means a quiet loyalty, day by day, to who you choose to be when no one is watching. Let us walk this path together. Philosophical introduction to the theme. Philosophy has always carried the restless desire to answer a question that sounds simple, yet remains unfathomable. What is reality? Plato saw it as shadows projected against the cave wall. Aristotle described it through forms and causes, while Eastern mystics pointed toward a fertile emptiness, a silent ground that precedes all things. Today, quantum physics reopens this timeless enigma in a new language, revealing that what we call the physical world is far less solid than our senses suggest. Reality is more of a dynamic stage, where particles are fleeting states of unseen fields, dancing to the rhythm of observation, attention, and choice. Quantum science reveals something both startling and humbling. Matter is not the final foundation of existence, but an expression of probabilities. When unobserved, reality rests as a wave, multiple paths coexisting in parallel. Yet the moment observation enters, the wave collapses into one specific outcome, as if consciousness itself pulled back a curtain and declared, "Here, in this moment, this is real." This strange dance between observing and existing is not simply poetic metaphor. It sits at the heart of experimental science. To see and to be are not two separate acts. They are inseparable faces of the same mystery. Metaphysically, this realization opens a profound doorway. We are not passive spectators watching a script already written. We are co-authors, and every gesture of focused attention becomes a pen that redraws the boundaries of the story. If each morning you wake believing you are merely a victim of circumstance, you hand your pen over to randomness. But when you begin to understand that your mind can tune into higher frequencies, the storyline starts to shift. The invisible, once distant and unreachable, reveals itself as a quiet ally, always responsive to the direction of your focus. Think about your own life. How many times has something improbable unfolded the moment you committed to a simple choice? It is as though a door had always been standing there, unnoticed, and only when you looked with conviction did it open into reality. Quantum physics might describe this as the collapse of the wave function. Metaphysics might call it synchronicity. Practically speaking, you experienced life responding directly to your presence. This is not abstract. It's tangible. When you decide to pay more attention to what you truly desire, instead of feeding energy to fear, opportunities begin to arrange themselves like pieces of a hidden mosaic, finally falling into place. Yet, it is important not to confuse this creative participation with absolute control. Reality is not a toy that obeys whim, but an intelligent field that responds with coherence, not with indulgence. Just as a seed does not sprout simply because we stare at it, but because we water, nurture, and allow time to do its work, Intentions too must be sustained with constancy. Physics speaks in terms of probability. Metaphysics speaks of ripening time. Consciousness bridges these two languages, holding the invisible thread that weaves what is unseen into what can finally be seen. And here is where our deeper exploration begins, with the recognition that consciousness is not an accidental byproduct of matter, but the very basis that allows matter to exist at all. We are waves before we are particles, field before we are body, meaning before we are story. When you embrace this truth, your perception of the world naturally expands. What once looked like chance reveals a hidden purpose, and what seemed like limitation turns into a doorway. This is the invitation of our second block. To accept that you are not just the one who observes. You are the very act of observing, the spark of awareness that brings the observed into being. Theoretical part, the invisible fabric of reality. Quantum physics introduces us to a reality that slips beyond the reach of ordinary sight. What we call a particle is not a fixed brick of matter, but a fleeting state of an invisible field. Picture the ocean. Every wave that rises on the surface is not something separate from the sea, but an expression of the entire body of water. In the same way, every electron, every photon, is not an isolated object, but a passing ripple, an expression of a universal field that pulses beneath all things, always ready to manifest in countless possible shapes. But this field does not follow the rigid logic of classical predictability. Instead, it operates through probabilities, through overlapping amplitudes that coexist until something calls them into concrete form. The well-known collapse of the wave function shows us that before we observe, there are many simultaneous futures. Yet in a very act of observation, one specific outcome crystallizes into experience. In essence, reality is malleable. Not in the sense of instant magic, but in the sense that human attention shapes, organizes, and lends weight to what had previously existed only as potential. Metaphysically, it is as though every thought acts as a lens, choosing which shade of the spectrum will become visible. When the mind fixates on fear, resentment, or doubt, the lens highlights heavier, denser probabilities. But when you open to trust, enthusiasm, and clarity, the lighter possibilities are invited forward, given a pathway to become alive. This is not mere spiritual speculation. It is a direct application of the principle that consciousness functions as both a filter and a sculptor of the possibilities offered by the quantum field. Consider a practical example. Think back to a time when you decided to learn something new, a language, a musical instrument, or even a skill at work. At first, it may have seemed chaotic, confusing, almost impossible. Yet as your attention deepened, coincidences began to appear. The right book fell into your hands, a mentor or helpful person crossed your path. Practice opportunities surfaced seemingly out of nowhere. This was not simple luck. It was your consciousness aligning the field, collapsing probabilities in harmony with your clear intention. On the quantum level, information itself carries mysterious properties. One of them is the no-cloning theorem. It is impossible to perfectly copy a quantum state without disturbing or altering it. This principle mirrors our human experience. What you feel, exactly as you feel it. cannot be duplicated, transferred, or reproduced in its fullness. Each sensation, each awareness, is private, singular, and unrepeatable. This reinforces the idea that human consciousness is far more than a function of brain chemistry. It is a unique phenomenon intertwined with the living web of the universe. The theory, then, leads us to a profound conclusion. We do not live in a universe of solid, isolated objects, but within a living network of meaning. Every particle, every moment, is like a musical note that only carries significance as part of the greater melody. When you recognize yourself as part of this symphony, the illusion of separation begins to dissolve. And when you realize that consciousness itself is the conductor, you understand that your inner state is never irrelevant. It participates in directing, in part, the very quality of the music that life plays in your direction. Emotional and spiritual dimension. When quantum physics tells us that reality is malleable, it is not simply a scientific statement. It is an existential reminder that we are not forever bound by the storyline of our past. At every single moment, a vast field of possibilities stretches out before us, and consciousness acts as the key that selects what will bloom into form. When this understanding moves from the intellect and reaches the heart, it creates a deep sense of relief. It feels as though life itself is whispering, "You are not condemned to repeat old chapters. You can write new ones, starting right now." Metaphysics, in harmony with this science, reminds us that the human experience is not limited to the physical body. We are fields of energy and meaning, constantly exchanging with the whole. When we cultivate love, gratitude, or hope, we are not merely generating private feelings. We are radiating frequencies that weave themselves into the universal network. This is why a single serene individual can transform the atmosphere of an entire space. Their inner field quietly reshapes the outer environment, like a soft melody shifting the tone of a once muted room. Or think of a time when you were near someone who radiated peace, even in the midst of hardship. Their very presence without words changed how you felt. This is not mystical in a shallow sense. It is energetic coherence. Just as atoms vibrate at specific frequencies, our consciousness emits patterns that influence the fields it touches. Recognizing this restores our sense of responsibility. What we nurture within is also what we silently contribute to the world around us, whether we are aware of it or not. In practical terms, applying this wisdom can be simple, though it requires steady practice. When fear or anxiety arises, do not fight against it as if it were an enemy. Instead, breathe deeply. Acknowledge the feeling without judgment and then ask yourself, what frequency do I choose to align with now? This conscious choice is like adjusting the dial of a radio. The static may not vanish immediately, but gradually the signal shifts until a clearer melody begins to emerge. This mirrors the quantum principle itself. Observe, choose, and sustain a new possibility until it stabilizes. From a spiritual perspective, this realization frees us from despair. Life is not a closed fate, but a living dialogue between human beings and the universe. When we understand that even pain can serve as raw material for transformation, we begin to see struggles as portals rather than prisons. What once looked like tragedy can unfold into a path of wisdom. This shift in perception does not erase the reality of suffering, but it gives that suffering meaning. Consciousness expands, and the heart finds a quiet strength to move forward. And here lies the true beauty, realizing we are never alone in this journey. The field responds, life itself responds. And what we call spirituality is not an escape, but a deeper intimacy with the fabric of reality. When we choose trust, the unseen begins to reveal itself, and the sensation is one of belonging to something infinitely greater than our individual selves. It is here that science and spirit intertwine. Both remind us that we are not passive observers, but active participants in a sacred and ongoing creation. Thought and emotion. A thought is like an arrow pointing in a certain direction, but emotion is the energy that propels that arrow forward. A thought on its own can be fragile, like a drawing in the sand that the wind erases in an instant. Yet when that thought is joined by a coherent emotion, it becomes a steady vibration, capable of imprinting itself onto the invisible field. This is why ideas that are nurtured by the heart have a far greater chance of taking shape. The universe does not simply respond to what we think with our rational minds. It resonates with what we feel in a complete, embodied way. The quantum physics shows us that observation influences the phenomenon being observed. But metaphysics takes the insight deeper. It is not the rational mind alone that collapses the wave, but the fullness of consciousness, which includes thought and emotion together. When we think one thing but feel the opposite, we send out contradictory signals. It is like trying to tune into two different radio stations at the same time. The result is noise, static without clarity. For reality to respond harmoniously, mental intention and emotional vibration must come into alignment. In practice, this means it is not enough to repeat positive affirmations if deep inside we remain soaked in fear, doubt, or disbelief. The field does not respond to scattered words, but to the vibrational coherence that supports them. This is why a simple yet powerful practice is to cultivate the feeling before the result arrives. If you long for peace, breathe as if you are already at peace. If you seek abundance, act with gratitude for what is already present in your life. This congruence creates resonance, and resonance is what opens doors that once seemed locked. Most of us have experienced moments when, even without a detailed plan, life seemed to flow with ease. Opportunities appeared, the right people entered our path, coincidences multiplied. This is what happens when thought and emotion are aligned, when mind and heart walk together. In such states, the universe appears to cooperate. This harmony is called coherence, and it is not the privilege of the enlightened few. It is a trainable skill, beginning with the honest question: what do I truly feel about what I believe I want? Emotion also acts as a mirror, revealing the state of our consciousness. If thought is the mental image of a future, then emotion is the thermometer that measures whether that future feels possible to us. When we feel joy, enthusiasm, or calm in relation to an intention, it means the inner field already recognizes that reality as achievable. When we feel tension, resistance, or heaviness, It signals misalignment. Listening to emotion is therefore listening to the feedback of the field itself, guiding us toward or away from the paths we choose. To understand this dance between thought and emotion is to take an essential step toward living more consciously. By aligning the two, we stop being victims of chance and begin navigating the invisible ocean with awareness. This alignment does not erase challenges, but it does give them meaning. Inner coherence becomes like a compass that always points to true north, no matter how much the scenery shifts. When the heart and the mind walk side by side, reality ceases to feel fragmented. It becomes a path. And each step on that path is not only movement forward, but creation itself. Guided exercise. Gently close your eyes if you feel comfortable and allow your breath to become the guiding thread of your awareness. Inhale slowly, noticing the air as it passes through your nose, expanding your chest, filling every cell of your body with life. Exhale as if releasing the weight of the hours already lived, letting tension dissolve into the space around you. Each breath serves as a reminder that you are deeply connected to something greater than yourself, an invisible ocean that sustains all life and answers the quiet call of your consciousness. Now, imagine before you a luminous field shimmering with infinite possibilities. There are no fixed forms, no predetermined paths. Everything rests in a state of pure potential. As you inhale, feel that you are drawing a spark of this field into your being. As you exhale, sense that you are returning your own vibrational signature back into that same field. This is an intimate dialogue, a silent exchange in which you and the universe shape one another, weaving together the melody of existence. Allow yourself to visualize something you wish to manifest, not merely as an abstract thought, but as if it were already unfolding in this very moment. If it is peace, feel your body soften and your mind rest in serenity. If it is love, sense the warmth of your heart expanding outward. If it is abundance, picture yourself moving with confidence, supported by resources and opportunities that surround you. The more deeply you allow yourself to feel this emotionally, the more coherent the signal you are sending into the field. Remember, the universe does not respond to empty words. It responds to vibration. As you hold this vision, return once again to your breath. With each inhalation, imagine the inner picture becoming stronger, as though you are charging it with energy. With each exhalation, imagine that vibration rippling out into the field, like waves spreading across a crystal-clear lake. Let yourself flow naturally with this rhythm. No strain, no need for control. Simply feel as though you are gently swaying to the rhythm of an invisible song. This exercise is not about forcing change. It is about allowing harmony to arise from within. Or perhaps your mind will whisper questions. Does this really work? Or am I just imagining it? Welcome these thoughts without resistance. Simply notice them, and then return to the felt coherence between what you think and what you feel. This simple act is the very heart of quantum practice. Observe, accept, and choose again. Each time you repeat this cycle, your consciousness gradually trains the mind to place more trust in the field than in fear. And slowly, What once seemed impossible begins to feel strangely familiar. To close this exercise, bring your attention gently back to the present moment, to the space where you are. Take one final deep breath in, offering gratitude for the field that has responded to your presence. Exhale softly, opening your eyes whenever you are ready, and notice how your body and mind feel now. Remember, this state does not vanish when the narration ends. It can be recreated anytime you choose. The field is always here, waiting, and your consciousness will always remain the key that opens and closes the doors of reality. Sustaining and applying in daily life. True transformation does not occur only in moments of meditation or quiet contemplation. It unfolds most powerfully in the small, ordinary choices we make every single day. When you wake up in the morning, the mind often rushes to replay old patterns, recalling worries, obligations, and even past pain. But right in that fragile instant, you are offered a precious opportunity to pause, take a deep breath, and consciously choose the tone that will guide your day. That simple gesture works like tuning a frequency, deciding whether the day will unfold under the weight of fear or in the presence of trust. It is vital to understand that sustaining a quantum state of coherence does not require perfection. It requires consistency. Think of a gardener watering a plant. It is not enough to pour water once and expect it to thrive forever. It is the repeated, quiet attention that guarantees growth. So it is with consciousness. Small daily rituals, expressing gratitude before sleep, observing your thoughts during the day, pausing to breathe when your heart races, act like steady drops of nourishment. Over time, they accumulate and form deep, resilient roots. Here is a practical example. When facing a tense meeting or an unexpected challenge, instead of reacting impulsively, take a brief pause. Close your eyes for a moment, connect with your breath, and ask yourself, what emotion do I choose to sustain right now? That single choice interrupts the automatic cycle and returns power to you. The power to align thought with feeling. The field does not respond to urgency or panic, but to inner clarity. And when clarity is present, the challenge does not magically vanish, but it becomes lighter, more manageable, and far less overwhelming. Another everyday practice is to transform ordinary tasks into moments of presence. While preparing a meal, notice the movements of your hands as if they were part of a delicate dance. As you walk down the street, feel each step as though it were the steady beat of an inner drum. When we turn the common into ritual, the mind begins to recognize the sacredness of the present moment, and emotion naturally finds serenity. This habit of perceiving the sacred in the ordinary strengthens the inner field, making it less fragile and less shaken by the turbulence of the external world. Sustaining coherence also means caring for the body, because the body is the vessel through which consciousness expresses itself. A restless mind or a neglected body generates noise, making vibrational clarity harder to maintain. Eating with awareness, moving daily, resting with quality sleep, and seeking moments of silence are not luxuries, they are foundations. Each physical act of care is also a spiritual act, because body and field are not separate. They are complementary expressions of the same flowing current of life. And above all, remember this. Applying this knowledge day by day is not a linear journey. There will be mornings of flow and evenings of struggle. There will be days of clarity and days of confusion. But every attempt, every return to center, strengthens the muscle of awareness. Progress is not measured by the absence of mistakes, but by the willingness to begin again. When you embrace this truth, you remove the heavy burden of self-criticism and welcome the path as living practice. This is how theory transforms into practice, and practice blossoms into a way of being, sustaining your life as a continuous expression of the quantum field. Expansion of consciousness and collective impact. When a single consciousness awakens, it is never just one individual who changes. It is as if a spark ignites within an invisible network that links all minds and all hearts. Every thought aligned with love, every emotion grounded in compassion, sends ripples that travel far beyond the self. The collective field is nourished by these elevated frequencies, and what once seemed like a private inner shift begins to act as a turning point in the wider social fabric. Inner work is never isolated, because the entire universe participates in the echo of each choice we make. Quantum physics already shows us that particles separated by vast distances can remain entangled, responding in synchrony no matter how far apart they are. This phenomenon, known as entanglement, serves as a powerful metaphor for our impact on the world. When we raise our vibration, we don't need to shout into the cosmos. It is enough simply to be. Inner coherence is recognized in silence, resonating like a subtle melody that others can sense even without words. Change does not arise through imposition, but through the living example that inspires others to shift. In practice, we have all felt this effect. Think of a room where someone entered anxious, angry, or unsettled. The energy shifted almost immediately, and the atmosphere grew heavy. Now recall a moment when someone walked in smiling, calm, and grounded. The environment softened, lightened, and opened. This influence is not just psychological, it is energetic. Each human field interacts with the others, forming a collective ocean of frequencies. By caring for your own inner resonance, you contribute to the vibrational hygiene of the whole, which is vital in times of global turbulence and uncertainty. And this truth brings with it a sense of responsibility, but also a profound sense of hope. In a world where crises and uncertainty seem to multiply, remembering that every conscious act carries weight is an antidote to despair. A small gesture, listening attentively, offering a kind word, maintaining calm in the midst of chaos, can become the catalyst that transforms not just one person, but an entire chain of situations. We are living transmitters, and each signal we choose to emit becomes part of the symphony that the collective is playing. From a spiritual perspective, understanding this collective impact frees us from the illusion of insignificance. We are not tiny, replaceable gears lost in a cold, impersonal machine. We are creative antennas, receiving, amplifying, and transmitting, co-creating realities that ripple far beyond the individual. When we cultivate inner coherence, we help dissolve fields of fear and nourish fields of trust. Every personal choice is also a planetary contribution. And when thousands align with the same frequency, profound social change begins to take form. So never underestimate the reach of your silent work. Even if no one sees your meditation, your mindful breathing, or your quiet acts of kindness, the field sees, the field feels, and the field responds. Life does not measure only external deeds, but also the vibrations you sustain in the unseen. And it is within this invisibility that the collective finds renewed strength. The more individuals awaken, the brighter the network becomes, and the world, which once felt heavy and inert, begins to breathe again. Your consciousness is a vital part of that breath, and the collective thanks you for every step you take. Integrating science, metaphysics, and practical life. Science offers us formulas, experiments, and data that validate the malleability of reality. Metaphysics, on the other hand, gives us meaning, direction, and purpose to navigate this mystery. When the two are brought together, a practical path emerges, one where knowledge is not trapped in books or confined to temples, but is lived out in the daily rhythm of existence. It is like having both a map and a compass. The map shows the possibilities. The compass points north. But it is always you who must take the steps. And each conscious step becomes living proof that theory and practice can weave together in harmony. In daily life, this integration means seeing yourself both as a scientist and as a spiritual seeker. The scientist asks, "What happens when I focus my attention here?" The seeker asks, "What does this mean for my inner journey?" When we merge the two questions, we become lifelong learners, attentive to the laws that govern the field, while also remaining sensitive to the whispers of the heart. This posture allows ordinary challenges, a difficult conversation, a financial decision, an inner conflict, to transform into laboratories of expansion and deeper understanding. Take a simple example. When faced with a problem, the rational mind tends to push for immediate solutions, while quantum wisdom invites a pause. Inhaling deeply creates space, and within that silence, unexpected ideas and connections arise. Science might call this process neural reorganization. Metaphysics might call it inspiration. In reality, both are expressions of the same source, reminding us that when we allow ourselves to slow down, the field reveals pathways that were invisible before, waiting only for our openness to appear. Integrating science and metaphysics also means realizing that there is no true separation between what we label as spiritual and what we consider material. Paying a bill can be a spiritual act if it is done with gratitude for the energy received. Preparing a meal can become a practice of presence when carried out with mindful attention. Even listening to someone deeply and sincerely is as sacred as a solitary meditation. The field responds not to the external form of the act, but to the quality of the intention behind it. All of life is a temple, if only we learn to see it that way. This integrative vision dissolves the fragmentation that so often divides us. We no longer have to choose between logic and faith, between science and spirit, between reason and poetry. Each perspective carries a piece of the mosaic, and when we embrace them all, we begin to live more fully, with greater fluidity, creativity, and less rigidity. It is as though each area of existence is a string on the same instrument, and only when all strings vibrate together does the music of life become whole, resonant, beautiful, and able to echo within both heart and mind. To live this integration is to recognize yourself as a bridge. You are the link between the visible and the invisible, between formulas and metaphors, between inner silence and outer action. This bridge is not built in a single day. It is formed brick by brick, practice by practice, choice by choice. Every conscious act becomes the cement that strengthens your crossing. And the stronger your bridge becomes, the more others will be able to cross alongside you, discovering that life need not be divided into opposites. It can be unified, abundant, and coherent. Closing and final invitation. We have arrived at the end of this journey, but the learning does not end here. At every moment, the living field renews itself, waiting for your attention to decide which probabilities will crystallize into reality. What we have shared so far is not meant to be stored as knowledge on a shelf, but embraced as a call to be lived. Consciousness is the key, and when you choose to use it, the ordinary day transforms into a portal. Every simple gesture takes on the weight of eternity, and the invisible reveals itself in full light before your attentive eyes. Remember, it is never theory alone that changes the world, but the quiet, repeated, patient practice of it. Just as a river carves valleys not by sudden force but by constancy, your consciousness shapes reality through daily choices. And if at times you find yourself doubting, do not despair. Doubt too can become raw material for growth, so long as it is observed with presence. Quantum physics shows us the malleability of the real. Metaphysics gives us its meaning, and it is your role to unite the two, weaving them into the fabric of your life. This is an invitation to walk through the world, knowing you carry within you a spark of the whole. When you align thought and emotion, sustain coherence, and choose with clear intention, you become a living transmitter of elevated frequencies. Your inner field begins to reorganize the collective field. Your life ceases to be a private narrative and becomes a universal contribution. And here lies the true beauty. What is simple reveals its grandeur. You are not a spectator. You are a co-creator of a universe that is always in motion, always in creation. Do not wait for perfect circumstances to begin. The time is always now, because the field only responds to presence. If today you start with a small gesture, taking a breath before reacting, expressing gratitude before sleep, choosing a word of kindness, you are already rewriting ancestral patterns and collapsing brighter probabilities into form. Each coherent action is a silent vote for the future you wish to see. And reality bends to that vote, not as instant magic, but as the natural consequence of a field aligned with your intention. I want to thank you for your presence in this journey. By listening and opening yourself to these words, you have not only received information, you have generated transformation. The vibration cultivated here travels with you, echoing through your day and into the encounters still to come. If you wish to continue nurturing this expansion, subscribe to Deslumbre do Amanhecer and share this video. In doing so, You amplify the resonance field, allowing others to hear this silent call to awakening and conscious participation. And now, as we close this cycle, I leave you with a reminder. Reality is like a dance between the visible and the invisible. You are the dancer, and at the same time, you are the dance itself. Every step you take from this moment on will be more than a movement through space. It will be the manifestation of who you choose to be. Walk with lightness, with courage, and with gratitude, knowing that the field always responds to your presence. The journey does not end here, it only expands. The next chapter begins within you, right now. And so, see you in the next video, with more information on everything that involves growing, evolving, transforming, and manifesting. See you soon.